Hey, it's Jason here. I want to talk to you in this one about things to negotiate with lenders, items to negotiate before you sign on the dotted line and secure the financing, perhaps for a business acquisition, for working capital, perhaps it's equipment financing, or you're putting together a financing for a number of vehicles, right? There's a whole bunch of things you may want to finance when you grow your business, but I want to talk to you about items I would really look at closely in items I negotiate with lenders before you close the deal. Let's get right into it. Number one, it's the obvious one, but we'll start with something we can all agree on, okay? Interest rate. You should be negotiating interest rate. Now, it's true that based on the federal funds rate and based on basically the current rates in the overarching marketplace, that lenders won't be able to go huge insofar as their distance between their best interest rate versus what they offer you. Usually you're negotiating within less than a percentage point, to be honest. It's usually between, and it could be a little bit more depending on the type of lender. Sometimes if you're looking at different types of financings, the interest rates may be a bit more varied. And if you're a newer borrower, sometimes the interest rates can be quite varied. But overall, usually, all things created equal, you're within about a percentage point you're really trying to negotiate with a lender. Okay, so 25, 50, 75 basis points. 25 basis points means 0.25%. 75 basis points means 0.75%. 100 basis points is 1%. Something to know of as well. It's just vernacular. It's financing knowledge and financing vernacular or financing speak to be aware of when you're negotiating with lenders. Okay, but that's the obvious one, interest rate. Let's continue. The next one that's really important, but people aren't always aware of, is a prepayment penalty. What is a prepayment penalty? Essentially, a prepayment penalty is a penalty you will have to pay if you prepay your loan within X number of months or Y number of years, right? So it's a penalty you'll have to pay if you pay off your loan early. Usually there's a prepayment penalty on a loan if it's going to be there within the first 12 months, 24 months, and sometimes all the way out to the first 36 months. Okay, I've often seen prepayment penalties where, for example, if you pay off the loan in full or if you make a big principal pay down on the loan within the first year, you have a 3% prepayment penalty, which means you're basically paying a 3% tax on the principal. If you paid off within the first 2 years, there's a 2% tax, 2% prepayment penalty, and then if you pay it off within the first 3 years, there's a 1% prepayment penalty. Okay, that is something I see quite often in SBA loans in particular. There's a whole wide range of prepayment penalties that can exist. It depends on the kind of loan, but this is something to be mindful of, especially if you plan on paying off the loan quickly. If you're planning on paying off the loan quickly, think of a prepayment penalty as another form of an interest rate because it essentially is. It's a tax. It's a penalty you're paying to pay off the loan quickly. Okay, so that's another one to be aware of. Third one to be aware of is the amortization schedule combined with the term of the loan. Okay, what's the amortization schedule and what's the term? Amortization schedule is essentially how many years is the loan amortizing. Okay, so if you're paying off a loan on a 30-year amortization schedule, it means you're paying off the loan as if you would be paying it off over 30 years. If it's on a 10-year amortization schedule, it means the payments you're making each month are being paid as if you were to pay off the loan over 10 years. 10-year amortization schedule, 10-year monthly payment schedule, 30-year amortization period, then it's like a 30-year monthly schedule of making payments versus the term of the loan. Okay, so you could have a 30-year amortization schedule and a 5-year term. What does this mean? It means you're making payments every single month as if you're going to be paying off the loan for 30 years, but at the end of the 5th year of the loan, it will come due in full. You'll have to either pay off the loan in full, the entire balance, or you'll have to refinance that loan before so you can buy out that existing lender and finance under a new loan with a new lender. Or perhaps the same lender, but a new loan. Okay, so amortization schedule is how long you would be paying the loan if you kept making those individual payments for the entirety of the loan, whereas the term is when the loan comes due in full. A balloon payment is often what it's described as. A balloon payment where suddenly you have to pay off the rest of the loan in full. Now, some loans have the term equal to the amortization schedule. An SBA 7A loan is a perfect example. It's a 10-year fully amortizing term. Okay, 10-year term, 10-year amortization schedule, they add up. So there's no balloon there. That's nice. It's nice not to have a balloon. This is something to be mindful of when discussing with lenders. And you'll notice when you get into the amortization calculator or a debt calculator or a mortgage calculator, there's a bunch of these. You just Google, commercial loan calculator or commercial debt calculator, and you'll find a bunch of these different calculators where you plug in the principal amount that you want to borrow. You plug in how many years the term is, how many years the amortization schedule will be, what the interest rate is, and you'll see how the payments vary based on changing those variables. Something I'd really recommend you do before you go and negotiate with lenders, so you have an understanding of if you give this much up, how much is that going to cost you? If you get this, if you lower the interest rate by 50 basis points, okay, it's going to reduce my payment this much. If I extend the amortization schedule from 15 years out to 20 years, it's going to do this to the monthly payment. Be aware of how these things play on one another. But amortization schedule in term combined with the balloon payment, really another big one to think about. Next, if you're doing a business financing, you're acquiring, say, a business, think about including working capital and or a line of credit. This is something you can also negotiate if you're moving your depository relationship, meaning the cash that you deposit at a given bank. If you're moving from one bank to another, think about including a line of credit. If you're bringing a plethora of liquidity, say $500,000 in liquidity that your business has just sitting in its checking account, if you're moving that from, say, Regions to Bank of America, by the way, I probably wouldn't use either of those banks for smaller entrepreneurs, but we can talk about that in another video. But I digress. If you're moving your cash from, say, Regions, though, to B of A, before you go to B of A, firstly, I would always be also talking to Wells and Chase and Citi. By the way, I actually don't like any of the big banks for smaller entrepreneurs, but those are names you're familiar with, right? So if I'm thinking about moving my cash from Regions to, say, B of A, I also should be talking to Wells and Citi and Chase. Why? Always get competition when securing financing or securing any kind of financing relationship. And again, in this case, if I'm going to bring my cash over just to deposit, then why don't I consider a line of credit? Why don't I negotiate a line of credit? Hey, if I'm going to drop $500,000 of cash in, your account, I'd like to have a $300,000 line, a line of credit. Okay, this is again something to also negotiate and to think about when you're looking to buy a business. Hey, will this acquisition financing come with a line of credit? Something to think about. Also, again, hey, do you know what? What if I brought my cash from my existing bank and we created a depository relationship with your lending institution? Would that change things? This is how you increase your bargaining chips so you can get more of the aforementioned terms, okay? There's a lot more to ultimately think about when buying a business and financing something or financing something, right? Because you could be buying a business, you could be buying equipment, could be buying property, whatever. But those are the core items that you're going to be negotiating with lenders. If you would like to learn how to buy businesses yourself and learn how to structure financings like these, go to jasonpaulrogers.com. Or if you'd like me to do the hard work and you'd rather just get a nice return on your investment, go to brighterutilities.com. We are always putting together investment opportunities for accredited investors. So if you're accredited, go to brighterutilities.com. Another big one, of course, is whether or not there's a personal guarantee or a corporate guarantee. As you grow and evolve, you can ultimately move away from the personal guarantees and move towards the corporate guarantees by showing the strength of your entity or your family of companies. If you have a number of companies under a portfolio or under a holding company, there's a bunch of things to think about, but these are the core ones right here. All right? Hopefully this video has been useful for you. If it has, thumbs it up and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll see you in the next video.